Good evening, everybody. What is up? This is the Scoreboard show from the Program Football League, and while I'll only spend a few moments tonight looking at the game, it'll be a quick video for the most part, maybe around 20 minutes. But first things first, let's just take a quick look at the scoreboard. As you can see right here, the San Diego State Aztecs are leading Tulane 59-40, and it doesn't look like Tulane is going to be able to turn the tide in this one. Moving right along, we've got Ohio State leading Penn State 30-18. It looks like Ohio State is going to take care of business and go to 4-6 and survive for another week. Penn State likely to drop to 5-5. And another game, we have New Mexico leading California 60-32. It does not look like California has a shot in this game. New Mexico is probably going to be 9-1. I would say it's about 100%. And California will drop to 5-5. Next game up we see here is Fresno State, as expected, up on Oregon 31-9. Fresno State going to go 4-6 and survive another week and stave off elimination. Oregon, of course, will go to 0-10, joining Tulane as basically the two teams without a victory this season. Next game up, we have a tight one. This is the game to watch tonight. Georgia currently leading Texas 37-34, and it is projected to be a close one. Georgia is expected to edge out the Longhorns. If the Longhorns lose this game, they will drop to 4-6, and Georgia will be 6-4. Texas, of course, still alive in their hopes for a championship, and Georgia getting a little bit closer to entering the championship round if they can win this one. And yet another game, we have Colorado leading Alabama 39-31. Colorado is expected to win. If so, Colorado goes to 6-4. Alabama will drop to 6-4. And finally, we have Maryland leading Michigan 48-34. Maryland on top. Maryland is expected to win. That would be their 8th victory of the season. They will be 8-2, and Michigan drops to 5-5 with the loss. Michigan, of course, still in the running for a championship. So that's the scores so far tonight. It's Monday Night Football. It is in action. And real quickly, let's take a look at what the score is. I do not have cable TV. I do not have a service that affords me the opportunity to watch the game. Often I'll be working on a Monday night, but not always. So I just don't bother to pay for any kind of service because I may not be able to use it on a regular basis. At any rate, I'm just looking up the score here, and it looks like they just got underway in Buffalo. It's the Denver Broncos and the Buffalo Bills. We'll keep that in mind for later on in the Scoreboard show. I'm going to take a little break here, and I'm going to work on this video throughout the night, just doing small snippets here and there. And by the end of the night, we'll have a complete video. We'll call it the Scoreboard show. And by tomorrow morning, we'll have a clear picture of who won and who lost. Be back in just a minute, everybody. All right, I am back and taking a closer look at this Texas-Georgia game. That is a tight one right now. Of course, we talked about it. Georgia is leading 37-34 over Texas. And a very important game for the Longhorns because if they lose this one, they're going to drop to 4-6. And they're going to be one game away from elimination. And if you look at basically what Texas has to look forward to, they've got coming up Ohio State, Tulane, and California. Tulane's playing San Diego State very well today. So that's not going to be an easy game. None of these games are going to be easy. So Texas really could ill afford to take a loss here against Georgia today, but it's looking pretty rough on them so far. Let's take a look at the box score, though. And see. Texas does have Khalil Shakir, though. Shakir appears to be healthy, and he would be important to their cause tonight. He's been playing pretty well of late. Shakir with 3 fantasy points in week 9 and 5 fantasy points in week 8. So he's been productive, and he will be. The Longhorns have linebacker Drew Sanders as well, rookie out of Arkansas, but only 4 points on the season. A closer look at Drew Sanders shows that he only scored .75 points in week 8. He didn't score at all in week 9, so his best outing was week 4 with 2.64 points, 5 tackles, 2 assists. But I don't know if they can expect much from Drew Sanders tonight. It really does come down to Khalil Shakir for Texas. He's going to have to start moving. He's going to have to start doing something pretty quickly here. As you can see, the score is Texas 34 and Georgia 37. And Georgia has just over a 3-point lead. Now, that is a deficit that could be made up, perhaps. And the reason is, look at these wide receivers for Texas so far. Jalen Tolbert is scoring with just a half of a point. Quentin Johnson will likely make the box score with that 3 points. But Darius Davis with just .68 points. That leaves an opening for Khalil Shakir. Shakir would have to score about 4 points in this game to make a difference. And that would be with Georgia not scoring any points. Georgia currently has Dane Jackson, defensive back, in the game, and he has scored. He has 1.5 points. I'm not sure how he got those points. It might have been a tackle for a loss, perhaps. I'm not really sure. It doesn't show any statistics here right now. The only problem is that he would have to score, excuse me, he would have to score at least 2.64 points to even enter the box score and take out Josh Metellus. So before he can score, he's going to have to do that. He's going to have to beat this score right here. And then he could add on for Georgia. So there you have it. That's what needs to happen for Dane Jackson. Turning our attention really quick to this Colorado-Alabama game where Terrell Bernard, the linebacker for Alabama, is having a pretty good game tonight. 6 tackles, 2 assists, and it looks like a sack. But still, probably not going to be enough to get Alabama over in this game. Let's look at just some of the implications of this one. Looking at the schedule ahead, for example, for Colorado Buffaloes. You see here they have Maryland coming up next week. That's going to be a tough one. Then they have Fresno State. In this Fresno State game looking very important to them as they could clinch at least a tiebreaker situation to get into the championship bracket. And Fresno State is going to play into this thing quite a bit, as you're going to see. You look at Ohio State, and next week, not Ohio State, but Alabama rather, next week they play Fresno State. So Colorado State gets Fresno State in week 12, and then Alabama gets Fresno State next week. And Fresno State, as you may or may not know, has not been playing all that great and is a very beatable team. So this is going to be a very important game for Alabama. simply because it's the easiest one they have on their schedule. You can see they have Georgia, who's playing well, and they have Penn State, who is a dangerous team, and Alabama, desperately in need of a win, is looking at this Fresno State game most likely as a must-win situation. If they can get that one, which they should, they have the 7 wins they need to at least qualify for a tiebreak. And then all they would have to do really is just beat Georgia or Penn State, and they're pretty much guaranteed a trip to the national championship playoffs. As for Colorado, they have Maryland next week, so they could very well be stuck at 6 wins going into week 12. So, once again, Fresno State is a game that this team, also Colorado, is targeting as one that gets them to 7 victories. And then, of course, if they could somehow pull off an upset against Maryland, they get their 7, and then they beat Fresno. Now they've got 8. That's pretty much a guarantee to get into the championship series. And then if they can't beat Maryland, of course, then you look at the Michigan game. You have to win the Fresno State game or the Michigan game for sure. If you win the Michigan game or the Fresno State game, the Michigan win would be a guarantee almost. Pretty much a guarantee to get into the championship playoffs. Well, it is halftime now in Buffalo, and as you can see, Denver leading 15-8, and Khalil Shakir has not scored in the first half. So he has one more half. Maybe they start getting him the ball in the second half, but for now, it's not looking good as far as Texas is concerned in this game. Texas desperately in need of a victory tonight in order to stay, relatively strong in the playoff championship scenario. They need a victory tonight. It would be nice for them. They're down by a little more than 3, and Shakir could score for them. He's just going to have to start entering the box score very soon. As you can see, nothing going on here. He is playing. He's got a return here, but we don't award points for returns. But real quickly, I also wanted to talk about a couple of other situations. We got a huge game coming up next week, and everybody might know, might not know, but the number 1 and number 2 teams are about ready to mix it up. San Diego State and New Mexico. Phil Johnson's New Mexico Lobos are about to host yours truly's San Diego State Aztecs, the defending champions in this league, the national championship winners from last year. And of course, kind of backed into that championship with the DeMar Hamlin situation. Most likely the Aztecs wouldn't have been the champions if Joe Burrow had been able to play another game beyond that Buffalo game. As you all know, that game was ended prematurely, and Joe Burrow, they never got a makeup game. So basically, the Aztecs kind of lucked out there on somebody else's misfortune, and they beat the team right next to them there right next to their helmet there, the Maryland Terrapins, who probably should have been the champions last year. And quite honestly, the Aztecs are a better team this year. I think it's pretty obvious that they're a better team this year. They just broke the record in scoring for this league in the 4-year history of this league. They just broke that record last week with an amazing game, mostly behind the great play of C.J. Stroud. He had nearly 500 yards passing and a crazy game against Tampa Bay, as you all know. So that sets the tone for this big matchup next week between the Aztecs and the New Mexico Lobos. And I don't know what to think on this one. If these two teams were to play this week, right now, New Mexico has about, a little less than a point more than the Aztecs. So if they were to play this week, well, the Lobos would have won the game by less than a point. And is that what we can expect to see next week is what I'm wondering. Is that what we're going to see when these two teams mix it up? It will be interesting, to be sure. C.J. Stroud against Bryce Young, the number 1 and number 2 quarterbacks taken in the NFL draft this year. Of course, when you look at New Mexico, you know that they have more than just Bryce Young. They've also got Gardner Minshew, who's playing fairly well for the Indianapolis Colts. And interestingly enough, the Lobos also have Aiden O'Connell, who is now a starter with the Las Vegas Raiders. And Aiden O'Connell, who knows what you have there? I mean, he could easily outdo Bryce Young. As you can see, Bryce Young's been up and down and all around. Gardner Minshew as well. He's only averaging 4.3 a game. But the fact of the matter is the Lobos have three quarterbacks that are serviceable, and the Aztecs basically have one. Of course, the Aztecs do have the backup to CJ Stroud. So if something did happen to Stroud, then Davis Mills comes into the game. So at least they have that insurance policy going for them. But what's going to happen is the Aztecs are going to have to overcome the wide receivers of the New Mexico Lobos. Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Puka Nakua will be back next week. They will be without Michael Pittman, but they have a very good wide receiver crew. And then they always seem to come up with, Phil Johnson at least, always seems to scout out some new running back. And right now, Keaton Mitchell, coming off of a 10-point game, this guy, who knows what this guy could do. And I am going to do like kind of a formal preview of every game next week. And they're going to be short videos, less than 5 minutes each. And it's going to be more of my dramatic voice where I'll be like, Keaton Mitchell comes into the game off of a hot whatever, I'm just going to write a script out and read it and give you guys a little show for those previews. And I'll start doing those tomorrow. Tomorrow's Tuesday, so I plan to do that, start kicking out those previews tomorrow. And this may very well be the first game I do, the Aztecs versus the Lobos, because this one is shaping up to be, well, I mean, obviously this is a game that, if you're into this league, you should be looking forward to this one. And this game is also a very interesting game for Maryland, as they have an outside shot at maybe attaining the best record in the league and getting that first round bye straight into the Rose Bowl. I don't know if you know this, but the team that ends up number one is going to get an automatic bye, always does, no matter what. The number one team always gets an automatic bye past the first round of the championship playoffs, which will be in week 15. Week 15 is when the teams that are 2 through 7 have a playoff bowl game amongst them to decide who goes to the Final Four. And currently, New Mexico would get that bye. Now, let's say New Mexico wins this game against San Diego State. And then the Maryland Terrapins turn around, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Maryland is taking on New Mexico in week 12, as you can see here. If they turn around and beat New Mexico, now these teams are 1-1 against each other. And tie breaks are based on head-to-head matchups, but if the three teams now are 1-1, it then falls to points scored. And you can see here that Maryland does have a disadvantage in this respect because they have 387 points coming into this week. So they're well behind both San Diego State and New Mexico. New Mexico really does have the upper hand in getting that number one seed. The one thing that could derail that would be a loss to San Diego State next week. So I've been monitoring this Bills game, and it was looking like maybe Shakir could get some numbers, but he didn't get involved on that Buffalo Bills drive that scored. Now the Bills are definitely, this game isn't going to go to overtime, so it looks like Shakir's going to be stuck where he is, and that is right here. There he is, 1.16 points. So it looks like at the end of the day, Texas will lose this game, and Georgia's going to go to 6-4. The Longhorns going to be 4-6. But yeah, you can see here this game going on currently. 24 seconds to go, and oh man, look at that! Denver's got the ball at Buffalo's 20-yard line. 3rd and 13 now. They must have taken a false start or something, maybe. I'm not sure. 5-yard penalty there. But looks like the Broncos might be able to pull this thing out with a field goal at the end. But that's not important to this league. What was important was that Texas get some points from Khalil Shakir, which they did not. And so that's going to cause them to lose this game. Other than that, I mean, a look up and down the scoreboard, we didn't see any changes. Everything's pretty much what we thought it was going to be. San Diego State going to get the win. They're going to go to 8-2. Tulane still without a win. You got Ohio State surviving. They'll be 4-6. Penn State dropping to 5-5. Again, I'm going to get into the previews this week. Each game should get its own preview, and I'll go into everything record-wise, in quick videos. But New Mexico, easy winners over Cal. They'll be 9-1. Cal drops to 5-5. They got their work cut out for them. Oregon State, winless. Fresno State, still alive. And they've got some tough games coming up against Alabama, Colorado. We talked about those earlier. This one here, Texas, we talked about Texas, Georgia. So Georgia goes to 6-4 with the win. One more gets them to at least a tiebreak scenario, probably into the championship playoffs. Colorado, Alabama. This one, we knew this one was going to be basically won by Colorado earlier because there was no players left, really. And finally, the Michigan-Maryland game. Maryland going to get the win here and go to 8-2. Michigan drops to 5-5. So we'll have a bunch of games, a bunch of previews for you this week as we get prepared for an exciting Week 11. Remember, we all get a bye in Week 14. No games Week 14, so we are down to the last 3 games of the season. Should be a lot of fun, and then there's bowl season. That's even going to be more fun. For those of you in the basketball league, I'll be making another show tomorrow morning, the NBA Retro Show, going over the hot players from tonight's games, hot free agents, and hot rookie performances. Talk a little bit more about those things I talked about on the show this morning. Talk about salary cap potentially next year. And you know what? I think we can do more than one game period per week. I think we can stick with 2 game periods like we're doing this year. I like the 2 game periods per week thing, Monday through Thursday and Friday, Saturday, Sunday game periods, because it just adds more like variability into the whole scenario. But that's not football talk. That's basketball talk, and that'll be tomorrow morning. So I'll talk to you guys later. And that's about all I've got here. We'll see you guys this week with the videos. Good night.